Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose. Affirmative.
Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this Tuesday. And I really don't care what day it is, or month, or year. All I've been thinking about lately is that it's, 17 years after 9/11. I remember that day. I woke up on the couch and I saw two planes crash into the Twin Towers. Now, I was in those buildings years ago when I was in New York, and I thought it was a movie. And then as the day played out, it was something else. Now, 17 years after that, we still haven't gotten to the truth. It's definitely an inside job. The government was involved. The Jesuits were involved. And nobody really talks about it anymore. And the world seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. If you listen to what's on the internet, you're going to get stories. I'm going to go over some stories you get on the internet. Some are good. Some are bad. By the way, you're listening to the Investigative Journal. This is Greg Anthony. We've been on the air for 13 or 14 years doing this nonsense. And I say nonsense because that's really the way most people in the mainstream think about it. And then people that do listen and believe it realize that you're just a small minority, and you will probably go to your grave with a lot of these things that we talk about here. And so it isn't a pretty picture, but one that we try to paint every day here to get you to understand that, one, what you get on the internet is a lot of BS a lot of times, and what you get in the mainstream is doubly the same thing. So you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, right? But I just looked over the last day or so what you get on the internet. Now, we did shows last week about the flat earth, and the responses were everything from this: you're crazy, I don't know why I turned this on, as soon as I hear your voice I shut it off. And then somebody else emails and says, thank you so much, because I'm firmly convinced from your shows and the presentation you gave from that pastor, that Baptist pastor, that the world is flat. So you go from extreme to extreme. And in the middle, you get about 99% of the people don't believe a word of it and go on with their daily life. So, some of the stories on the internet. I read today that in the year 2030, only 90% of us won't be here. Well, I started thinking about that, and I said, well, it depends on how old you are, who's listening, but he's talking about population depopulation and how they're going to kill us. And then he talks about a bioterrorism attack that's on the horizon. Okay, so that's something you read. Now, let's read something else here, a little bit more mainstream. But it says a majority of Democrats say that illegal aliens should be given the right to vote in America. And some preface it by saying, well, as long as they pay taxes, they should vote. 54% of Democrats said that illegal aliens in the U.S. should be given the right to vote so long as they pay taxes. Now, my take on it is, go ahead. I don't really care, because it doesn't matter whether you vote or not. I've been an American citizen my whole life. Born in Chicago, lived here a long time. I've never went and voted. So there you go. Why don't we just bring people from all over the world, let them vote? Wouldn't make any difference, because the reason I don't vote is that it doesn't matter. Because they've got these elections fixed to begin with. So what are you going there anyway for? It's a waste of time. And the reason I say that, and many people will say, well, you're not exercising your right as an American. So yes, I am. I'm exercising my right as an American citizen not to vote. Hell, I'll go to Norway and vote. Or maybe I should go to Italy and vote. Be the same thing. Their elections are fixed. I'll go to Mexico and vote. Their elections are fixed too. Or maybe I should go to Brazil. How about Venezuela? I'll go to Venezuela and vote. I guess if an illegal alien can vote in America, I can go to Venezuela and vote, right? What difference would it make? The other day, I read a story about the president of Venezuela, who's destroying the country with the help of the Jesuits. He was almost killed by a drone attack, they said. Okay, so here we go. Why don't you just forget about borders, forget about anything, and everybody just run around to the country they want to vote. For example, tomorrow I want to take a plane to Rio de Janeiro and vote in Brazil. Would it make any difference? No. The reason is their elections are rigged too. So let's give everybody the right to vote where they want to. Okay, I want to go to Australia and vote. Now, why would I want to waste my time voting anywhere? To be honest with you, because if you understand the way the world really works, the world as we see it on this show, it doesn't matter. Because most of the countries, and I'd say all of the major countries, are controlled by the powers that be. And we're going to get into that later on in the show. But let's look at what they said. So here's this article I read. Say, a majority of Democratic voters now say that the 12 million illegal aliens currently residing in the United States should be given the right to vote. I am firmly a believer of that. I believe everybody should. Give a kid who's 6 months old the right to vote. Just go in there and tell him, Johnny, and he won't even know what you're saying, press that nice little red button. What button do you like? Do you like that red button, or do you like the blue button, which is, of course, Democrat or Republican? He won't know, and he'll press whatever he wants, and that's about as much worth as the votes really are. So give kids 6 months old the right to vote. Give people who can't even, people in a hospital that have been in a coma for 20 years, give them the right to vote. Just have their loved one put a button, press their hand and put the button. It doesn't matter. So they do these nonsensical polls, and all of these people really think it's really important that you vote. I'm telling you it isn't. That every election is rigged, especially the higher you go, the more it's rigged. You think that Donald Trump was voted in by the people? No. He was selected years ago to be president. And how come most presidents in the United States come from royal bloodlines? They say that a majority of presidents come from the bloodline of Charlemagne. So do you think that what they're doing here is they're creating chaos amongst people who think voting is important? That's most red-blooded Americans who believe in Republican government and all that BS. And they're saying, oh my goodness, what's happening in America? The Democrats want to allow people who don't even have a citizenship to vote. And then you get the people on the right, on the left, the Democrats are going, my goodness, we get all these people coming from all over the world working, paying taxes. They should have a say in our government. Okay. Let everybody do what the hell they want. That's what I say. Vote, everybody, from the time you're born, 6 months old, till the time you die, whether you're in a coma or whatever, vote. And I will tell you this. If you're an illegal alien in this country and you're working and paying taxes, first of all, taxes are unconstitutional in our country. You don't need to pay them. The reason you're going to pay them is because they got you frightened to death that you get kicked out of the country. But if you really want to be an American, start understanding what the laws really mean. I don't care if you stay here or not, to be honest with you. If you want to live here, that's fine. Hell, I don't want to live in America, and I'm a citizen. So stay. I think that every American that leaves should give the right of another person to come in. For example, I don't want to live here. I want to live in Brazil. Why Brazil today? I don't know. I want to live in Brazil, so I'm going to go there. I'll find somebody in Brazil, and I say, do you want to live in America? Go ahead. You take my citizenship. You give me yours for a while. We'll just switch. Why not? It's fair, isn't it? What's the matter with it? Doesn't matter where you're born? No. Who knows? This is one world, right? We're all together in this world, correct? Hell, I want to go live in Tibet tomorrow. So I'll find a person from Tibet, and I'll say, listen, I'll trade my citizenship for yours. What the hell? And you can vote. Go right ahead. I've never voted. So you go ahead and vote. Take my name. I don't care. What's your name? And let me stay here for a while. And then when I want to leave there, let's say I want to go live in Peru. I'll say, hey, I can live in Tibet, and I got American citizen, Tibetan citizenship. I want to live here for a while, so let's switch. Seems fair, doesn't it? But anyway, the real point is that voting in America means nothing to all of you Democrats and all of you Republicans who really want to sit here and fight over this issue of whether illegal aliens can vote here. Let me tell you this. It'd be better off if nobody votes. That would be the election I would like to see. The presidential election in America, and the score was 3-3. 3 people cast votes for one president-elect, or one president from the Democratic Party, and 3 people cast votes for the other. Boy, we got a tie. So a tie goes to the what? Okay, let's let them fight it out. Yeah, put them in a ring. The winner wins. You know, the guy who throws the most punches and knocks the other guy out. I don't care. Girls now, they're boxers, aren't they? I see them in the ring boxing. Let them box with men. There's a lot of women out there. I'll tell you what. I was watching the World Boxing Association, Women's Boxing Association. Hell, they look like men. I wouldn't want to box them. Even in my heyday when I was a young guy. They'd knock the hell out of me. So if a woman's running, a man's running, and if the votes are tied, let them fight it out. That's what they want. There's no difference anymore between men and women, correct? It's exactly what we're being told. In school, nowadays, you take a kid in school, the first thing they're learning by the time they're 5 years old is, hey, there's no difference between men and women. Who are you? You want to be a woman? That's fine. Doesn't matter. Do you feel better, son, as a woman? Be a woman. Or if you're a woman and you feel better as a man, you be a man. And there's no way that, your biological birthright means a damn thing anymore. Correct? That's what they're moving towards. And hell, we go to these schools now, can you imagine, when I went to school having co-ed bathrooms? Oh my God. Chaos. But that's what they do now because, the Boy Scouts can't even keep their name Boy Scouts anymore, right? Because they want to change everything to no gender equality, all gender equality. Everybody's the same. It doesn't matter if you're born man or a woman. It doesn't matter where you're born. Hell, if you're born in Tijuana, you can vote in San Diego. And if you're born in San Diego, go ahead and vote in Tijuana. Who cares? That's the way I look at it. Forget about the border. It'd be a lot quicker to get through. I pass through there a lot. And I got to wait 2 hours. So hell, just open it up. Why not? And it's interesting to note, though, when I come from America to Mexico, I don't wait at all. I just go right in. I like that. Now, America, get with it. Be like Mexico. Let these people... I'm tired of waiting in that line. I don't know about anybody else who sits in the border here in San Diego. And this is all on a little story I read about the majority of Democrats want illegal aliens to vote. And you know my position on that. I say, go right ahead. I've never voted in my life, and I'm proud of it. Okay, enough of that. I could go on forever. Now, here's an interesting story. Who needs houses anymore in America? Do you really think about this? Because I'm reading this article right now. It says the number of Americans living in their cars has exploded. Many more Americans are now. How do they know that? What are these people going around following people, seeing if they live in their car? As the middle class continues to disappear. Well, we know that. Sadly, it's just not in major urban areas that you're seeing people sleeping in their vehicles. No. They're saying it's happened in the country. Now, my first thought is this. I can understand if you want to live in your car in the city. You got to protect yourself. Who wants to sleep on concrete? But if I'm living in the country, why would I want to sleep in my car when I can go and sleep in the beautiful grass under a nice tree, by a nice brook? Mother Nature's right there. Why would I sleep in my car? So this article is terrible. But they do say that the gap between the rich and the poor continues to increase. Boy, they're really telling me something. I mean, I can see that from my own eyes. The middle class is steadily eroding. For example, the number of people living on the street in LA, I don't know how they figure this, has shot up 75% over the last 6 years. But of course, LA is far from being alone. Other major cities on the West Coast are facing similar problems, and that includes Seattle. Turns out that the Emerald City, I forgot that it was named the Emerald City, has been a 46% rise. How did they know? Why is it not 45 or 51? But they say 46. Rise in the number of people sleeping in their vehicles in just the past year. Now, how do they know that? What do they go out at night and check every car? And they go on the window and go, "Hey, sir, are you sleeping in your vehicle? Or are you drunk and you couldn't make it home?" Next car, "Ma'am, are your children sleeping in the back seat? Or are you drunk and can't get them home?" Every car. How do they know? The number of people who live in their vehicles, they say, because they can't find affordable housing, is on the rise. Wow. Tell me something new. Go to San Diego, for example. Go to Chicago. Go to LA. Try to find a place to live. You get a little apartment. Go to New York. You're going to live in a place that you can't, you can touch every wall with your arms. And it's going to cost you over $1,500 a month. Imagine if you just want a one-bedroom. Oh, that's too much for people these days. You got to live in a studio. Or now they're talking about compact apartments. I mean, give me a break. Why do you think people are going to live in their... What happens when they can't afford a car? Where are they going to live then? In a cardboard box? Well, you can go to countries where they do. I'm sure there's a lot of people in America do. You can see these tent cities now all over the place. And what it's doing really is frightening everybody who's on that edge. Imagine if you're a kid now, you got a family, you're 28 years old, your wife is staying home with the children, you got 2 kids, and you got a job where you're spending 3 weeks of your salary paying just for your rent. And every month it's a struggle to figure out, how am I going to do this? What can I eat? How can I feed these kids? And pretty soon, you're wearing out these people. They're frightened, and then they drive somewhere, right? And they see all these people sleeping in the street or in their cars. They get scared out of their minds because they're thinking, I really work, and I don't want to end up like that. What can I do? Well, let me give you some advice. Get the hell out of any big city. Go somewhere where even if you don't make as much money, you can find a happy place. You can go to places in America now and find a place to live that's cheap, but you're going to have to live in places that you may not like. You may have to go to Iowa, Kansas. There's a lot of places. If I was a young kid, I wouldn't stay. I would run from Chicago. I would run from New York. I would get out of those cities. And I'm telling you, at least you're going to meet people that help you. And what I'm getting at is, I remember even years ago, I had a small restaurant in a small town. And I didn't see anybody sleeping in the street. And I remember a couple guys that they ran on hard times. And I knew all the restaurant owners in town. There were only like 4 restaurants. And, occasionally a guy come by and we'd give him a meal. And we got to know the people that were, hurting. And I even remember a family that got on hard times, and everybody came into town that Saturday, and there was a big yard sale for them. Everybody brought their things that they didn't want, and everybody came and bought some things, and all the money went to this family. So, poverty is going to happen no matter what. People fall on hard times. I don't care where you're at. But, man, if you live in a city and you don't pay your rent 1 month and you got 2 kids and you're out on the street, man, It's not, nobody's going to come to your rescue. People are going to drive by and think you're a loser. And they're going to think you're worthless. Because they don't know you, they don't know your situation, and personally they don't care. Because you're just another statistic, you're just another number, and you're just another person they're looking at saying, that ain't going to happen to me, get away from me. And that's what's going on. Now, they're telling me now that more people are living in cars everywhere. The number of people who live in their vehicles because they can't afford housing is on the rise. Even though this is America, right? Now, why do people from other countries want to even go there anymore? That's my point. Is it worse in those countries? I mean, when you read this story, and I was, let's say I was living in, where should I be? Let's say, I don't know, any country that's not America. And I go, holy shit. People are living in their cars all over, and I'm looking at these pictures. I don't want to go there. I got it better off here. So why do people want to go there anymore? Because America does one thing really good. They bullshit you to go. They tell you it's so great. They tell you it's the greatest, freest country in the world, that we got the best, we got the most. And people believe it because we need cheap labor. Nobody wants to work in restaurants anymore. Look, I had a restaurant. I couldn't find one American guy that wanted to work in a restaurant. I could find some girls that want to be waitresses. But you try to find somebody who want to be a dishwasher? Hell no. Every person that I had that did those jobs was from another country, and I thanked them. All right, did they work illegally? Yeah. Did I get caught? No. But how was I going to run my restaurant? Nobody wanted to do it. Oh, I did have one American guy. He lasted a day. Because they're spoiled. They expect, you grow up in this country and expect the world. And when you get nothing, you get pissed off and you go on drugs or you get drunk, and that's the end of the story, and then you end up on the street. So, my little advice to you is this problem is exploding all over. Expensive housing markets include LA, Portland, San Francisco. According to Governing Magazine, let's see, it's a magazine, Microsoft and other big tech companies are in Seattle area. It's a region that is supposedly prospering. But a recent survey by National Law Center on homelessness and poverty, which tracks policies in 187 cities, found the number of prohibitions against vehicle residency has more than doubled during the last decade. So, people are getting fined for living in their vehicle. You know, they don't know where to go. Oh, I got a great story in the next half hour. Okay, we're going to talk about, I know somebody, and this guy is a veteran. He works at my Panera. I'm not going to say where because you might think badly of him, but I don't. And he has been living in his little van for, let me see, I've known him 7 years. Yeah, this is great America. San Diego, Chula Vista. Wow, great country, right? Let me tell you about this veteran who served his country. Smart guy, I know him. And the reason I know him is I used to go and have coffee all the time. When it was real, and I'm going to tell you why I don't go there anymore either. Tell you what this country, America's, I think it's entirely too expensive to have coffee anymore in the morning. I stopped trying to stop drinking it because people told me coffee was bad. And then I read an article, they said, people that drink coffee live longer, so I started drinking it again. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This ain't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour. This is Greg Anthony on the Investigative Journal. We're going over some stories that I've seen on the internet and in the mainstream news lately. And I told you I'd get back about a story about somebody. We're talking about the rise of people living in their vehicles in good old America. And we mentioned that it's skyrocketing all over the place because people can't afford housing anymore. So they're living in their cars. Boy, I was thinking too at the break, man, they ought to make, this would have been better if it happened back in the 60s, because the cars were big back then. You know, they had big bench seats, very comfortable, probably more comfortable than the bed I have now. But now they make these little foreign cars. How do people sleep in those? You know, try sleep in a Prius. I mean, come on. It's great for gas mileage, but not meant to house a family of 4, right? No. But anyway, so I told you I'd tell you this story, okay, about somebody who's lived in their vehicle. I know that he's lived in his vehicle for the last 7 years, because the other day, I don't go to this coffee shop anymore, but I saw his little van out there, and I said, boy, he's still there. And let me tell you the story. This guy was a veteran, was in the Air Force a number of years, got out, gets a little bit, I don't think he was a lifer, so he doesn't make that much money with his, the money he gets from the military. And he started working at a coffee shop at a place called My Panera. And he'd been working there a long time, and I started talking to him one day, and he was very, nice guy. We were having a good conversation, and I met him in the parking lot once, and he had mentioned that he lives in his little van. And I said, wow, how come? He says, well, I can't afford a house. I can't afford rent. And if I had rent, I would pay all the money that I make working on that. So I stay in my little van. And I said, where do you park it? And he goes, well, there's certain spots in the city I found. It's, the police get to know me. They stop me a couple times. I've been rear-ended once. You can see the dent there, still there. The guy never paid me. Didn't have any insurance, and wasn't even a citizen. So, a guy gets his van hit. He still has the same van. And I know where he parks it a lot of times because he told me. But there's certain areas that they let you do it, and the police knew him, so they don't bug him much. But I noticed that a lot too. I used to walk my dog in a park near there, and I used to keep track of there were people that used to live in their cars, and they could only stay there till like 10 o'clock at night. Then they had to go somewhere else, or they lived in their little motorhome, and they couldn't afford. There was a big motorhome park right next to this little private, the public park where they could stay till 10 o'clock. Then they had to go find another place. I don't know why they just didn't let them stay. But the RV park was like $800 a month. So a lot of people can't afford that. So I wanted to tell you that story. And the guy's been doing that for at least 7 years. So anybody thinking of coming to America, think about it. What's the real advantage anymore? Really? Healthcare costs are on the rise. Cost of living is going to go up. Gas prices, I just noticed, have really skyrocketed in California with the new gas tax. And food prices are becoming incredibly ridiculous. And the cost of a college education is off the charts. Many middle-class families are relying on debt to get them from month to month. And consumer debt in the United States has surged to an all-time high. Nobody's paying that back, but eventually a day of reckoning, it has to come, right? And we all understand that. The U.S. economy is not going to be getting any better than it is right now. So it's time that people, especially if you're younger, in your working years, to be a little bit lean and mean. Be a lean and mean saving machine. Because it will be important to have a little bit of a financial cushion for the hard times that are ahead. And they are not going to get any better, let me tell you that. So find something. If you can't afford the city, there's little towns. I've checked it out. You can go and find a lot of little places in America where you can still, and if you got energy, you're in your 20s, your 30s, you can find something really a lot cheaper than what's going on. Let me see what happened here. Oh, here's something that may come to America. I like this story, even though I don't like the guy who wrote it, but I won't get into it. Sometimes, you got to even look and say, hey, I know this guy's bullshitted me a little bit over the years, but maybe this time, no. But the story has to be, and I've talked to, this is interesting because years ago I talked to a couple people in South Africa. And South Africa right now wants to change its constitution to legalize taking away white farmers' land. And the ANC, which is a party there, will through the parliamentary process finalize the proposed amendment to the Constitution that outlines more clearly the conditions under which expropriation of land without compensation can be effected. South African President Cecil Ramaphosa has said the ruling African National Congress must initiate a parliamentary process to enshrine in the Constitution a proposed amendment paving the way for land grabs without compensation. He said he vowed to return the lands owned by the white farmers since the 1600s to the country's black population after he assumed office in February of this year. So, I remember doing stories years ago, it was back I think in 2010, about a pastor, a Christian pastor who was in South Africa, in Cape Town, and he had a nice house, and he went on a vacation for a month, and he came back and he found that squatters were living in his house. He had no legal right to get them out. Yes, in fact, when he tried, he was arrested. Is that coming to America? Well, you see this kind of... Now, these guys have owned the land since the 1600s, and they want to turn it back to the black population. Okay. Now, what can happen here? Are we going to turn all our land over to the American Indians? What are we going to do? Now, I don't want to get into that story today, but I saw this yesterday, too. Yesterday was a day of a lot of little crazy stories. But there are people in Austin, Texas. Now, I spent a little time in Round Rock, Texas, which is right near Austin. What they want to do is change the name of the city of Austin because Stephen Austin, the founder of Texas, used to have slaves. And basically, because of that, they say that the city should just wipe its name clean and get a new name. Now, I said this year, when this started happening, remember when these radical groups started to say, we got to get rid of the statue of Jefferson Davis, we got to get rid of anything that the South and the slavery people, we got to get rid of all this stuff. But what happens when that happens? Pretty soon, you're going to have to erase all your history. What about Washington? He owned slaves. Jefferson. What about everything? That pretty soon, what these people want to do is just erase everything. So they want to change names of towns. They want to change names of cities. They want to get rid of all statues just to say, well, America really has changed. Well, really, that's crazy when you think about it. First of all, the people living today had nothing to do with it. Secondly, why erase your history? I mean, you can learn from this stuff. This is what the country was all about. And to take away and just destroy everything, what did they do? Just think about it. If you don't think there's a global conspiracy, and if you don't think people are behind all this stuff on a larger scale, what did they do in Iran, in Persia, in 1979, when the Shah was overturned by this crazy regime that's been there since then? What they really tried to do, at that point, they tried to get rid of the beautiful Persian culture. A lot of, they tried to get rid of everything that was Persian, that was beautiful about that culture, which the Iranian people, it's a beautiful culture that they've tried to destroy. And are they going to do the same thing here? Are they going to do this? What did they do in many other Central American countries? What have they done in other countries where they're just trying to erase any type of nationalism, any type of history that people can grab onto? And to change the name of a city like Austin, for that reason, how far will it go then? Pretty soon, you're not going to have any history. And even though a lot of the history has even been rewritten, and you got to check a little deeper, it's a good starting point, isn't it? So it's crazy, really, what they're trying to do. And here in South Africa now, they here's an interesting. I haven't read this story, but this happened in Chandler, Arizona. And let me read this to you. A transgender woman kills her own grandmother with a knife, and the media then decides she's a man. Okay. When is a transgender woman not a woman? Apparently, when she kills her own grandmother, at which point she magically returns to being he. According to Chandler, Arizona police, a 30-year-old Arizona man was arrested after police said he killed his grandmother because he was tired of caring for her. Although the man, Brandon Smith, had identified as a woman, the media then omitted that fact and focused on the fact he was a male, presumably because of the negative image associated with the transgender accused of a heinous murder. Okay, there you go. The real problem here is that I don't care if he's a man or a woman, the guy should be put away. I mean, kills his grandmother? Okay. Give me a break. Okay. Since we're talking about transgenders, one last story before I get into something serious. Not that this isn't serious. Something that I consider important. Not that this isn't important. But a federal judge has ruled that Wisconsin has to pay for body mutilation surgery on 2 transgender individuals. Okay, the judge. Trans surgery medically necessary and Medicaid covers the bill. So they say it's necessary. Cody Flack, a woman who identifies as a man, and Sarah Ann McKenzie, a man who identifies as a woman, it's getting complicated, isn't it? Sued the state in federal court, saying that denying them body-altering surgery to treat their gender dysphoria, violates the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. And last week, guess what? A crazy judge, U.S. District Judge William Conley, agreed, saying the medical treatments were medically necessary. So he's saying that it's necessary and we should pay for it because this guy wants to be a woman and this woman wants to be a man. And that the likelihood, okay, and he's saying this, and this is his quote, "This is medically necessary," says Judge William Conley. I wonder if the judge wants to be a woman. Maybe he's wants to be a transgender and wants the state to pay for him someday. Who knows? You never know what they're doing under those black robes. So, Judge William Conley agreed, saying that these transgender treatments, that means, you know what that means. Oh boy, I just get chills thinking about that. I mean, why would anybody want to do that? It's crazy to me, crazy. I mean, saying the medical treatments were medically, I'm going to get so many emails from people who will say, you know, hear what he said. It's crazy to deny somebody surgery to being, this man wants to be a woman, and that, I think that hurts. Okay. And the likelihood of ongoing he said this, the judge, it's medically necessary. And the likelihood of ongoing irreparable harm facing these 2 individual plaintiffs outweighs any marginal impacts on the defendant's stated concerns regarding public health or limiting costs. So, do you realize what this judge is saying? That, let me just look at, you got the defendant in front of you, or the plaintiffs. He's a man, he wants to be a woman. Woman wants to be a man. They're looking at me and I go, I think it's going to cause you irreparable harm if we don't do this for you. And this outweighs the limiting of costs. People can't afford, you ever go to the emergency room? People can't, you're getting your hand's about to fall off. And they're asking for your insurance card. But it's okay here to just pay for this guy to have his you-know-what cut off because he wants to be a woman. I'd look him in the eye and say, you know something, son? Get the hell out of my courtroom. I don't want to listen to this garbage anymore. You were born a man. It's up to you. You want to change? You figure out a way to do it. I ain't paying for it. Bye. Same thing with you, woman. Go. I mean, that's what should be done. Sounds crude, but what the hell? Jelaine Appling of Wisconsin Family Action says, activists are at work here. Oh, you think? Here's what she says. She should have been the judge. She said, it's not biological, it's ideological. And I believe this is a test case to try to get it to the Supreme Court to get a decision that says these folks are in a position where they have to have these kind of surgeries, and yet taxpayers have to pay for it. She laments. Now, just think about this. What if you are a Christian doctor? Okay, now remember this case that recently came out where the Christian in this one small town, he owned a bakery, okay, and he refused to bake a cake for a homosexual wedding. And then the homosexual sued him. The case eventually went to the Supreme Court and he won, okay? And the Supreme Court said that his religious views have to be respected. Now, isn't this the same thing? What about if you're the doctor and now you're working in this state institution and these guys come and you're forced to give this surgery? Would he be able to say, no, I can't do it because of my religious reasons? Oh boy, that would open up a great case, wouldn't it? But, you know, I would tell these homosexuals and these transgenders, you can't have your cake and eat it too. All right. Let's get on to something else. My favorite topic of discussion. We only have 4 minutes. No, we got 6 minutes. Okay. If you listen to my show, you know that I call the top of the pyramid, so to speak, the Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order. And many of my stories talk about this based on things that have been written in the past, which are many, but have been many books you can't find anymore, but you can find some, and I found 3 here. And also, from personal experience, when I lived in Rome and worked there as a journalist during the 1980s, during the Vatican Bank scandal. So I have a little bit of experience in this. And what I say, much is based on other books, people like Samuel Morse, the inventor of the Morse Code, things that Lincoln had talked about, and many, many other people, much more learned and scholars than me, have talked about the Jesuits and what they're really all about. And then you can get into the Christian realm and learn a hell of a lot more because many, many died at their hands. Now, the Jesuits, I say, are the fathers of all satanic secret societies. All of them. Okay? Now, these Jesuitical maneuvers in Freemasonry can be summarized. There's 3 books you got to get. At least 3. There's another one, but I couldn't find the title. But one is called The Secret Societies of All Ages and Countries. Get that book. Another is Proofs of a Conspiracy, written by John Robison. And another is the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Get those 3 books and start reading them. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that when you discuss Freemasonry and the connection between it, another thing you should go look at are these roasts. You ever notice Hollywood does all these roasts? They roast this person, that's an old Freemason ritual. And I listened to one yesterday when they roasted Bruce Willis. And it started out when there was a checkerboard, you know, the black checkerboard floor, and the podium was in the what was it? One of the Eye of Horus or something. So go get you can find Bruce Willis being roasted. But these roasts are really Freemasonic rituals. Now, the Jesuit connection to Freemasonry and the Vatican connection to Freemasonry is huge. And when you start understanding that, it opens up a whole new area of research. Now, the reason I say that is the Vatican and the Jesuits will say publicly that they're opposed to Freemasonry, that they despise it, that they're Christians through and through. The Jesuits are the Society of Jesus. The Pope is, of course, the Vicar of Christ, Jesus on earth. I've told you many times they're just using Jesus as a shill. But they're going to tell you that. And everything you're going to read, if you just follow the mainstream, and, you know, the alternative media are a bunch of, they're weak. when it comes to this story, because much of the alternative media is bought and paid for by the Jesuits in the Vatican, and including our good friend Alex Jones and some of these other guys. But really, they are involved in Freemasonry and control it and have used it. And how I know that, let me just, there's much you can read in history about it, going all the way back if you just want to start with our founding fathers, their connections, as well as some of the statues in Washington. We've gotten into that, Albert Pike being one. When I was in Rome, and I only have 2 minutes here, so let me just do this real quickly. When I was in Rome, a huge story came out stating that the French and Italian newspapers didn't get to America, although a couple of us tried to get the story there, but we were blackballed, couldn't do it. And I started wondering why, because I didn't know much then about this subject. But I found it interesting that these papers said that over 150 high-level cardinals and bishops were outed as being involved in Freemasonry. And they were giving their code names. They were many involved in the famous P2 Lodge, which was involved in that huge Vatican bank scandal. So here you have the Vatican and Jesuits being involved in Freemasonry, actually members, but then they tell you that they hate it, right? That they're against it. So you know what's going on. Now, what happened here? According to canon law, anybody that's involved in Freemasonry should be excommunicated. Were any of these priests, cardinals, and bishops excommunicated? Hell no. So, you know that what they tell you is a lie. And so now you have to do your research and say, okay, how did the Jesuits get involved in Freemasonry? And it's a great story. And once you start opening that door, you'll see how their involvement goes much, much deeper in our governments and the governments of the world. And really the role they play, which is huge, because they've been at this game of deception and tyranny and treachery since the 1500s in the Protestant Reformation. Good way to end the show. Back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.